replying: "She was present, or first, in the room on all the occasions. There was only damage done in the first and second." The inference was one which I, as a lawyer, could not mistake. I thought the best thing to do was to meet it halfway. I have always found that the best way to encounter an inference is to cause it to be turned into a statement. "You mean," I said, "that as on the only occasions when actual harm was done, Miss Trelawny's being the first to discover it is a proof that she did it, or was in some way connected with the attempt as well as the discovery?" "I didn't venture to put it as clear as that; but that is where the doubt which I had leads." Sergeant Daw was a man of courage; he evidently did not shrink from any conclusion of his reasoning on facts. We were both silent for a while. Fears began crowding in on my own mind. Not doubts of Miss Trelawny, or of any act of hers; but fears lest such acts should be misunderstood. There was evidently a mystery somewhere, and if no solution to it could be found, the doubt would be cast on someone. In such cases, the guesses of the majority are bound to follow the line of least resistance; and if it could be proved that any personal gain to anyone could follow Mr. Trelawny's death, should such ensue, it might prove a difficult task for anyone to prove innocence in the face of suspicious facts. I found myself instinctively taking that deferential course which, until the plan of battle of the prosecution is unfolded, is so safe an attitude for the defence. It would never do for me, at this stage, to combat any theories which a detective might form. I could best help Miss Trelawny by listening and understanding. When the time should come for the dissipation and obliteration of the theories, I should be quite willing to use all my militant ardour and all the weapons at my command. "You will, of course, do your duty, I know," I said, "and without fear. What course do you intend to take?" "I don't know as yet, sir. You see, up to now it isn't with me even a suspicion. If anyone else told me that the sweet young lady had a hand in such a matter, I would think him a fool; but I am bound to follow my own conclusions. I know well that just as unlikely persons have been proved guilty, when a whole court, all except the prosecution who knew the facts, and the judge who had taught his mind to wait, would have sworn to innocence. I wouldn't, for all the world, wrong such a young lady; more especial when she has such a cruel weight to bear. And you will be sure that I won't say a word that'll prompt anyone else to make such a charge. That's why I speak to you in confidence, man to man. You are skilled in proofs; that is your profession. Mine only gets so far as suspicions, and what we call our own proofs, which are nothing but ex parte evidence after all. You know Miss Trelawny better than I do; and though I watch round the sick room, and go where I like about the house and in and out of it, I haven't the same opportunities as you have of knowing the lady and what her life is, or her means are, or of anything else which might give me a clue to her actions. If I were to try to find out from her, it would at once arouse her suspicions. Then, if she were guilty, all possibility of ultimate proof would go, for she would easily find a way to baffle discovery. But if she be innocent, as I hope she is, it would be doing a cruel wrong to accuse her. I have thought the matter over according to my lights before I spoke to you; and if I have taken a liberty, sir, I am truly sorry." "No liberty in the world, Daw," I said warmly, for the man's courage and honesty and consideration compelled respect. "I am glad you have spoken to me so frankly. We both want to find out the truth; and there is so much about this case that is strange, so strange as to go beyond all experiences, that to aim at truth is our only chance of making anything clear in the long run, no matter what our views are, or what object we wish to achieve ultimately." The sergeant looked pleased as he went on: "I thought, therefore, that if you had it once in your mind that somebody else held to such a possibility, you would by degrees get proof, or at any rate such ideas as would convince yourself, either for or against it. Then we would come to some conclusion, or at any rate we should so exhaust all other possibilities that the most likely one would remain as the nearest thing to proof, or strong suspicion, that we could get. After that we should have to—" Just at this moment the door opened, and Miss Trelawny entered the room. The moment she saw us, she drew back quickly, saying: "Oh, I beg pardon! I did not know you were here, and engaged." By the time I had stood up, she was about to go back. "Do come in," I said. "Sergeant Daw and I were only talking matters over." Whilst she was hesitating, Mrs. Grant appeared, saying as she entered the room: "Doctor Winchester is come, miss, and is asking for you." I obeyed Miss Trelawny's look. Together we left the room. When the doctor had made his examination, he told us that there was seemingly no change. He added that nevertheless he would like to stay in the house that night, if he might. Miss Trelawny looked glad, and sent word to Mrs. Grant to get a room ready for him. Later in the day, when he and I happened to be alone together, he said suddenly: "I have arranged to stay here tonight because I want to have a talk with you. And as I wish it to be quite private, I thought the least suspicious way would be to have a cigar together late in the evening when Miss Trelawny is watching her father." We still kept to our arrangement that neither the sick man's daughter or I should be on watch all night. We were to share the duty at the early hours of the morning. I was anxious about this, for I knew from our conversation that the detective would watch in secret himself, and would be particularly alert about that time. The day passed uneventfully. Miss Trelawny slept in the afternoon, and after dinner went to relieve the nurse. Mrs. Grant remained with her, Sergeant Daw being on duty in the corridor. Doctor Winchester and I took our coffee in the library. When we had lit our cigars, he said quietly: "Now that we are alone, I want to have a confidential talk. We are tiled, of course, for the present at all events?" "Quite so," I said, my heart sinking as I thought of my conversation with Sergeant Daw in the morning, and of the disturbing and harrowing fears which it had left in my mind. He went on: "This case is enough to try the sanity of all of us concerned in it. The more I think of it, the madder I seem to get; and the two lines, each continually strengthened, seem to pull harder in opposite directions." "What two lines?" He looked at me keenly for a moment before replying. Doctor Winchester's look at such moments was apt to be disconcerting. It would have been so to me had I had a personal part, other than my interest in Miss Trelawny, in the matter. As it was, however, I stood it unruffled. I was now an attorney in the case, an amicus curiae in one sense, in another retained for the defence. The mere thought that in this clever man's mind were two lines, equally strong and opposite, was in itself so consoling as to neutralize my anxiety as to a new attack. As he began to speak, the Doctor's face wore an inscrutable smile. This, however, gave place to a stern gravity as he proceeded: "Two lines: fact and fancy. In the first there is this whole thing: attacks, attempt at robbery and murder, stupefyings, organized catalepsy which points to either criminal hypnotism and thought suggestion, or some simple form of poisoning unclassified yet in our toxicology. In the other there is some influence at work which is not classified in any book that I know, outside the pages of romance. I never felt in my life so strongly the truth of Hamlet's words: 'There are more things in heaven and earth. than are dreamt of in your philosophy.